So we're gonna open the January 8th, 2025 Town Center and Libraries Building Committee meeting. I don't see anybody here from the public, but is there anybody on the committee that would like to make a public comment? Okay, any additions, deletions to the agenda?
Nope, not from me.
Okay, so we can
Hey, Kara,
start.
we were, just been mulling this over. I wanted to start a discussion about our meeting schedule and stuff. It seems like, I don't know, I guess maybe this is my own feeling, so we can take this for, everyone can feel differently, obviously. It seems like, with the current tax situation and the funding we've pursued and haven't realized that meeting twice a month or even once a month seems kind of like we're spinning our wheels right now, unless something changes. So I was gonna just propose that we reevaluate that, maybe at least formalize the once a month meeting or something.
Okay, shall we?
I guess I think there's a lot of valuable work to do, but
Adam, can we add that as a item, under, after approval of meeting minutes?
that sounds great.
Okay, so we'll add it as item 7, and then.
We can
item
also add it
7
to a future meeting too, if this is something everyone wants to mull over. I mean, I don't think that we need to make a decision or formalize anything this evening. I just know that our trajectory of actually being able to get stuff done is obviously going to be, a lot of it's going to be financing contingent, and that seems to be up in the air. So
I think I'm totally open to having the discussion tonight, just not making a decision because it wasn't a warned item.
yeah, I think that this is something we probably want to all mull over individually anyway. So if we get the discussion started and then come back around to it at a future meeting would be good.
Okay, so we'll put that as 7, and we'll kick 7, which is the next meeting agenda as number 8. Any other added additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item number 1, which is a discussion of the Camels Hump Development Group presentation and any other discussions around that or what we want to discuss. Do you want to kick it off?
Yes, I kind of was the one that pushed for this. We did have a meeting with Art here. I guess it's quite some time ago now.
October 9th.
Just that long ago. And I joined this committee back last spring because, I voted no on the bond issue, but I really thought that this building needed a lot of work, but not as much as what had been proposed. And we've been 9 months now, and we really haven't talked at all, or very little, about the real issues that this building has. We've been talking about a bunch of the deferred maintenance items and some of the smaller things, but we really haven't got to the issues that I think are the most important. I came up with a list of what I think the more important things should be. Number one is that there's no accessible fire escape from this floor of the building. I'm surprised we're even allowed to have meetings up here. The fire alarm system is not to code and is having issues all the time. I just heard this week that there was more issues that they're trying to get fixed, and hopefully it would work if we needed it. The air conditioning system is beyond its expected life expectancy. As Freon is the coolant in it, which is not legal for new installations and is difficult to get for maintenance. We've got windows that the wind blows in around. They have to put plastic over in the winter times to make the workplace habitable for our town employees. The post office roof has got some leak issues and also some insulation issues. We've got holes in the back foundation walls of the post office that lets floodwaters that are far below the FEMA levels come flowing into the building. I think there's some interior changes that need to be made that the last proposal was to basically gut both the post office and here and start over again. I don't think that's necessary. But we have to discuss about what the police department really needs are. If we have to move Radiate part out of the basement, we gotta find a place for them. The town manager has a spacious office, but the assistant manager is stuffed in a closet with a mess of electrical equipment back there. I think we can do better for Duncan. And there is a lot of wasted space. The other side of the other meeting room, there's 3 offices in there that are filled with junk. I don't know, I think there's other space around there, so I think some rearrangement of the walls in here is warranted, but not a complete rebuild.
Can I just ask one question so I'm clear? The wasted space is, are you talking planning and zoning office?
No, I'm talking about the next where
What's
the
up?
select board meeting room is. There's 3 offices in front of that, and
Okay,
just,
I wanted to make sure I'm taking notes the right
Yeah.
place. So the wasted space is 3rd floor.
yeah, and I don't know, I haven't looked closely at the rest of the floor plan. I don't know what's over in the front corner of this floor here.
Mount Mansfield Community Television, Historical Society and
yeah, I know
Senior
there's some of
Center,
them
yep,
over
they're
there,
on
so-
that side,
So is
so.
it okay if I say wasted space, 3rd floor, extra offices?
Yeah. And there isn't any sprinkler system. I know that's not a requirement, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. I think that's maybe on the edge of whether we need it or not. So those kind of things, I think we really ought to be talking about. So having that said,
I agree.
we
with
did
you.
have, excuse me,
I agree with you.
having that said, we did have a visit from our Pluto, I think his name is, from Camels Hump. I was a little troubled by the direction of the conversation that night. He seemed to come in here with the understanding that we weren't planning to do much of anything to this building. And if we didn't do much to the building, we wouldn't trigger the levels. So for the FEMA requirements, we wouldn't need to do that. And it might be more cost effective just to let the water come in and clean it up when it did. And maybe it wouldn't get high enough to damage any of the equipment. I mean, that wasn't, I don't remember the committee ever making those kinds of decisions, and I don't know where he got that idea. But he did. I left here not wondering if I really wanted to hire this guy or not. But I think he could be very useful to us. But we need to define to him what our expectations are and what we're really planning to do. And there were a couple of things he did say that kind of struck a chord with me. He said he did not believe that Black River or any other company in Vermont had much experience with flood mitigation. And he had worked with a company from, I believe, from Boston on some other issues that had worked with a Vermont company to come up with some of that. So I think it might be in our best interest to try to see if we could get a second opinion as far as what the flood mitigation options are for us.
Hey, Mike,
I,
can I interject for 1 second? Just to give, I guess, to tie it in, to give a little quick update on Art's, potential hiring. What we decided is that it would be likely be above the threshold where we can just hire someone without some form of RFP kind of situation. And so put together an RFP, Duncan's working on it, just to touch base with him to finalize that. And so it would be a little different from a lot of the RFPs we do because we don't have like equipment with specifications we're obviously putting out. It's an RFP for a service. So even if we decided to hire Art right now, we would have a challenging time doing that without going through the RFP process. So not to derail the conversation, just to kind of provide a little bit of insight into the process, I think. So I think at minimum, we would need to at least get another proposal for similar services and kind of weigh those options. I don't think cost would be the only factor, but I think that just to your point, I think just hiring Art straight out would probably violate our procurement policy at minimum and would probably not be not be us doing our due diligence. So I guess that was more of an update on the RFP, but I think that ties into this conversation pretty well.
I think that's the second item on the agenda, is to
Yeah.
update the RFP.
Yeah, I just think it ties in, so it's kind of
Yeah,
part
yeah,
of that.
I
know-
understand.
Cool. So anyway,
Yeah, the
sorry,
other-
go ahead. I agree a lot with what you're saying. I think Art brings a lot to the table. He's one of the few people that's done a similar or larger project in Vermont.
And
But I also have a hard time believing that there's not some expertise locally that can help us with this. So trying to balance.
if we
those two
can find
things.
someone better than him, then we should hire them too, so. The second thing he said, that we needed to set a budget for the maximum amount that we would be willing to spend. At first, that wasn't the way I had been thinking. I'd been thinking about looking at the Black River thing and seeing what we could cut out of it. But after giving it some thought, I tend to agree with them, but I'm not willing to just grab a number randomly out of the air. I think we need to look at what we want to accomplish with this and try to come up with some estimates of what that might cost as we try to develop that number that we want. But before we turn it over to someone like Black River again with no top limit on it, I think it'd be better to put a little cost pressure on whoever's developing the next phase here. I have done some work. I've done quite a bit of work here, looking at how we would go ahead doing that. I've got Black River. We got some information from Black River. They did a lot of work. Back up a little bit here. Yeah, another thing he suggested is that we should hire someone to come in, evaluate the building, and tell us what's wrong with it and what needed to be done. And we can do something there if we feel it's necessary, but I kind of think we've been there. We have the report that Breadloaf did 5 years ago that did a pretty thorough report at the time. It's 5 years old, but not a lot has changed. Black River has done a lot, although they haven't communicated it very well. And we've got the list that Kara's been working on of all the a lot of the deferred maintenance items that we've been somehow calling them deferred maintenance items. I don't know. Causes a trigger with me. I'm not sure why. But anyway, we've got a lot of information about what's wrong with the building. If we need somebody to pull it all together into a report, then so be it. But I kind of think we've already been there.
You know, Mike, what I don't think I have a good hold on in that space is what's wrong with the building that has to be fixed by code and law, and what's wrong with the building because it just kind of is inconvenient and
That's a good point.
That's really what I think as a committee we have to understand well and just say, look, we really have to fix these things.
Yeah.
Then there's things like the roof that we really should fix this. And
right.
And then there's things like, yes, we understand A, B, and C, but we're not going to include it in the required fixes because it's not required.
Right. And I don't know what the requirements are for a fire escape, but it seemed like there should be one. But what I've done, trying to figure out, I tried some time ago to look at the Black River breakdown and try to figure out what the cost was for the flood mitigation, and it was kind of all over the place, and I really wasn't able to pull anything together. So I took a shot at it from a different direction, and I spent a lot of time on this. I started with this breakdown that came it was in the Black River Design RITC feasibility scope outline specification. There was a section in it of an estimated budget estimate from 8/22/23 that was about a 4-page spreadsheet. That's the most detailed breakdown of anything that we have. It was done about a month before they finalized the budget for it that had to go into the, that went out for the bond issue. So it was close to being done, and it turns out that if you take out the story pavilion that was down, it was that they had proposed for $60,000. It comes out with pretty much the same number that was put in for the bond issue. So I think it's fairly complete in all the pieces to it, but it's kind of scattered all over the place and hard to. So what I did was quite a bit of work. I wished I could have got hold of that spreadsheet that I could manipulate it, but it wasn't in a form that I could. So I basically typed it over again, most of it.
Can I just confirm for the notes, Mike, is this the flood mitigation area of the pricing, or was?
This is everything.
Okay, this is the whole thing.
This is the whole
I want to
thing.
make sure, because you mentioned flood mitigation, I
So,
want to make sure it's everything.
We talked about last time we were here. And find what I did. I came up with a new spreadsheet. And we talked about putting it out to the public here so that we could talk about it in detail here. I didn't feel comfortable doing that quite yet because it's not completely correct. I've still got some issues with it and so forth. But I think what I've done is I redid it and I moved things around so that they're in different categories that give us I think a pretty good idea of where the costs are coming from. I started with windows. The new Pella windows cost $181,300, and then there's some brick mold that goes with them that's $23,000. But then in another part somewhere else, there's some things to foam the existing waste pockets, remove the old windows, and install trim sills, paint, and so forth. And then there's a window trim, restore new. So when you pull all those together, it gives us everything that's necessary to replace the windows. And it came out with a cost of $428,570. The other thing that I found as I went through here, there's really two levels of costs that we need to deal with. That number, the 428,000, that's the cost that it would take to actually do the work, the material and labor costs to get those windows replaced. But that's not the cost that has the effect on the bond issue that went to the voters. And as I look through this, get my glasses on here. This is fine print. That cost got escalated up as it went along through, and it got compounded. And looking through this spreadsheet from Black River, the first major section's on site work. And at the bottom of the site work, the last item was site contractors, trying to read. General conditions markup 25%. So everything that was in that site work thing gets 25% added to it. And then the last page of it, after everything's been totaled up, all of the other work plus the site work with its 25% increase, there's another markup here. It says CM fee / markup 10%, liability insurance 3/4%, and 1% for bonds, for a total of 11.75%. So that gets everything marked up in the whole thing, including the 25% that was done there. And then from the handout that was given out to voters here before the bond vote, there's a 15% contingency that was added to all of the others. And then on top of the 15% contingency, there's a 7.5% inflation allowance for the time between the bid was done and they expected to do. There will be more inflation as well because we've delayed it more. but I don't know how to deal with that. So that isn't really addressed. So what it came down to is that after you compound each one of those up, the site work part of the project gets inflated by 72.68%, and the rest of it by 38.15. So what I did in the spreadsheet here is I added those factors on, and I've got two columns. One is the actual work we would do it, and one is the escalated part. I put them all together. So in the case of the windows, for instance, the real cost to do the work was $128,570, but it came out $592,073 when you escalate it all up. So that's that $592,000 number is what contributed to the level of funding that we asked for in the bond. And then I went down through, and I'm not going to go through all of it because I haven't made this public, but the kinds of headings that I put in there was the windows, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, moving the elevator controls, sprinkler system, fire alarm, security, electrical communication, the entrance requirements, bringing all the new power and communications into the building, not what's done inside, moving the electrical vehicle charges, the fire escape tower, which took several pages of things to do here. Fire extinguishers, something called air sealing. I don't know what that means until I visit sample. Some work done on the vault. Post office roof, post office flood mitigation, which I assume the post office, I don't believe really needed a lot of work other than what was caused by the flood mitigation. I think there was some small changes that the postmaster asked for, but I don't know what they were.
No.
I saw a note in there that there was some small changes, but basically they were going to gut that building, fill in the floor, and then rebuild it pretty much as it was, I think. So I included everything in there as flood mitigation. And the historic building flood mitigation, and then interior changes and repairs to the historic building. That was a big one, and that needs to be broken down further, but I didn't quite know how to do that. So those are the kinds, then I think there's more at the end here. Exterior repairs, which was repoint the bricks and paint the things that are not bricks on the outside. So that's what I have. I have a spreadsheet with that on there that I think gives us an idea of what categories the basic costs fall into, and it should help us coming up with figuring out which ones we want to do and what they might cost to try to put together a number that we think is reasonable to go to the voters with.
Are you thinking, based on the spreadsheet that you've created, that we use this list to prioritize these things one at a time? Or do you feel like we go to the voters and say, okay, we're going to do these three things together because they're the most pressing, so we need to.
Well, I think we need to decide which things are most pressing.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, if there are things on this list that I read before that we think should be done.
Yep.
This should help us come to an understanding of what those might cost.
Okay.
And they may not be, this may not be perfect. There are some things in here like the fire tower, for instance. I think we need something there, but there's some things in there that I don't understand. I would expect, for instance, that you would build a fire escape out of non-flammable materials. So why do we need a sprinkler system? And why do we need to heat the fire escape? And if we don't heat it, why do we need to insulate it? So I think plus I think it's, they had proposed a building that's 13 feet wide and 20 feet long. That seems huge. It seems like they could make that more compact, which is got to bring some costs down too, so. You know. There's some things in there that I think just can change, but we need to know, we know where we're starting from, and we have a list of where. They've got a whole mess of big windows in the fire escape, I'm not sure why that's necessary.
Well, the fire escape was in their original plan, it was more of a second stairwell. It was a fire egress, but it was gonna be a second stairwell that the police department could use to go up
Okay,
to there. So it was an
is
enclosed,
more than that.
it was like a
Yeah.
addition, that was the
Okay.
only addition to
Okay.
the building.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
it was
but-
expensive.
It was expensive,
Yeah.
yes. So that's about what I've got. There are a couple of items though that I maybe would like to go into a little more detail. One was the windows. The windows came out to be $592,073 when it got escalated up. So why are we doing anything with the windows? Well, they're old and drafty, and we know that we're wasting some energy, and we have to paste plastic over them in the wintertime. But nobody could tell me how much energy we are really wasting. But I looked in the town, at the budget in the town report, and the total heating cost for the building is around $10,000, I believe.
Yes.
So even if we cut that in half with these, which we don't have any chance of doing, the payback material time for it would be 100 years. So it really doesn't make any financial sense to replace all the windows, but we still got wind blowing in on all the people. So this is just an idea. Early last summer, before I even joined this committee, but I was in the process of doing it. I was down in Waterbury and I saw signs, they had an energy fair, and I stopped up and looked around, rode an e-bike. But there was a booth in there from a company from Connecticut that sells interior storm windows. I picked up some information from them. They even gave me, I told her it was a big building, so she gave me all kinds of things.
Free stuff's always good.
These are some samples. I don't know if the people online can see. But the edges of the windows, glass goes in here. There's a spring-loaded thing that comes up, presses against. They go on the inside, right against the interior casings that are already there. To install them, there's a channel, something like this, that gets attached at the top. The glass goes up into that. On there, you just push them in, slide them in place, and there's a couple of little stops that get put on the bottom to keep it from coming down. There, in their brochure, there's a whole list of places that have used them, everything. This old house, US Military Academy, Boston Artery Project. A whole lot of historical societies, museums, libraries, Rutland Free Library, Antietam National Battlefield. There's a whole list of different places that have used them. They also gave me a price list kind of thing and how to calculate the prices. And I actually came down and measured some of these windows and worked it out through there. We can put these and we can buy the windows to go in every single window in this building for under $30,000. And if we go a little bit higher, we can put low E glass in them that's supposed to save some more energy. I don't know if that's cost effective or not, but it's worth looking at.
Can I comment on this, Mike?
Sure.
I love this idea. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
bringing this forward, because this, for me, this is something we could even pilot on a few windows.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
see if it's working now this
Yeah.
winter, if we can get something ordered, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
To see, because I love this kind of idea.
One thing too, that anything, as I talked about how these prices get escalated up when it gets through the whole bidding process, anything we can do with the money we have doesn't get escalated.
Mhm.
So anything here or anywhere else in here that we can spend some of the money that we've got in our kitty to do things, it'll be cheaper than putting it out completely.
Hey, Mike, is this?
So in addition to
something you
buying
do in-
these, we'd also,
Hold on 1 second, Adam. He didn't hear that you were speaking.
Oh, sorry. Would you like me to do an inventory and get some dimensions on windows, Mike, so we can
I
pilot?
mean, that would be fine. I think
One or two?
most of the windows are this size. I counted the number of windows and I just said they're all that size. I know there's some of them that are small. I also know that if we do the fire escape, we're gonna block in some of the windows that won't be done. And I think there's few windows that have already been
Yes,
replaced, so they probably wouldn't need
Yeah,
them either.
the one in the stairwell right there, the two downstairs.
Yeah,
So,
Question, though?
on the window, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kara.
Can I ask you the question though? What if we looked at, and I don't know how long, we can check on how long it takes to order these and get these produced and that kind of thing, but I'm wondering if where the staff are, 5 days a week, if we could focus on just specifically those windows to begin with, because they'd be able to give us the feedback if they actually worked or not.
right.
Mhm.
And in addition to just purchasing the hardware, we would need to have the windows measured, and the windows their measuring process is fairly complicated. They not only measure the dimensions of the windows, they also put a carpenter square in there and check to see if they're square and how much gap there is and so forth. And they actually make the windows, make the pieces individually for the windows that are here. So they're all made to speculate. The ones for these large windows, the double hung windows would be made in two pieces, and there's a mullion that goes in the middle. So they would go in it also gets a little, then you'd have to have somebody come and install them. I think they will come up and measure them. I think there was a note in there that said if they measured them and it was wrong, then they would fix it. If we measured them, then we would fix it. So I think it might be a little more costly to get them to do it, but they would do it right, and it might be worth that.
and they do the installation as
And then
well.
the installation, I don't know if they do the installation or not. The other part that gets a little messy here, it would work fine in these windows, but the ones in most of the buildings have the drop ceilings that come down on the windows. So how that, we'd have to figure out how we handle that, because those I think are actually blocked in so they could put the shades on them and so forth. Some of that would probably need to be taken out so that there would be some cost in the installation side of it and the measuring, but I think it would be a lot less than $190,000.
Be okay with having Mike contact this company and get some more information for us, and also find out if they have installers, because if somebody else installs that doesn't know what they're doing, then their warranty probably isn't there.
Yeah.
So if they can get if they don't install, then they might have a list of contractors that do.
Yeah,
Are Adam and Matt, are you okay with Mike doing more research on this?
Absolutely.
yeah.
Beautiful, love the idea. I'm also one who thought that the price of the windows compared to the heating bill did not add up to brand new windows all throughout their whole building. So thank you, Mike.
Touch on that quick. I do think we should get an independent for price proposal to do the windows,
Yep.
not through Black River. I know I had talked to a few friends about it, and they estimated, that the actual window would only be, contrary to what everyone seems to think. I mean, a custom masonry opening window from Pella or Marvin that meets current stretch energy code for that size would only be like $2,000. And they figured it would be about that to install it again. So I have a hunch if we didn't do it as part of a huge massive product, we could do the windows for under half of what was proposed, I think. So I don't, go ahead, Mike. Yep.
Yeah, well, the total cost that came from Pella for all of the windows was about $200,000. The rest of that was for, there was $193,000 for just removing the old windows and making the casements, ready for it and so forth. So, it would help to get that
Having
down.
done some retrofit masonry windows before in buildings that are of a similar age, I just don't understand. I think we should get a proposal not from Pella. I know that
Yeah.
having proposals from Pella to do the labor, that it's pretty exorbitant. So that doesn't I don't think that it's gonna be a surefire way to get it done with extra windows, but those numbers, even for a window of that size, don't line up with my personal experience of having done windows in masonry openings before.
Yeah.
So,
Adam, the specific windows, I mean, this was looked at, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, that they replaced the two windows at the landing between the second floor and the third floor in the stairwell. Those
Yeah.
were $7,500.
I guess I just
So
don't
that,
understand like what spec we put in there to do that, because a window of that dimension with an aluminum clad wood framed window that's painted on the interior, double pane. A 6 or 7 foot tall window by 4 feet wide isn't $7,500 now. So I guess I'm just curious, like, is there like a historic thing? I know we're not trying to
Yes.
meet something historic,
yes,
but I
yes.
mean, why are we, so if we're gonna put in interior storm windows and do all this stuff, like, we're not keeping it fully historic anyway. So why are we so stuck on that? If we can get a more efficient window for $2,000 or $3,000 that is exponentially better, why are we so stuck on the historic features? And it'll still be double hung, and it'll still look similar, it'll still be white, so I don't understand
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
stuck on there.
This, we can ask, I think it's very important for us to understand what they've done before, because if we're going to get
Yeah.
pushback from the community, and this was I will go back, this was something, I think it was a Gary Brassor label on it.
Yeah.
And I think it's when he was on the committee and others were on the committee, and this is the windows that we had to go with, because the community pushed back and said, that's astronomical, that's way too much money.
Yeah.
And they said, this is the way it's going to be. So we need to find out more about
Sure.
that, Adam.
I
have
am
no
doing a bunch
problem
of
with you
window
having a
pricing
con-
right now, so Mike, if you wanna pursue the interior storm windows, I will
Yeah.
price out the standard size
Yeah, and that,
in masonry opening pellet as a custom size, so we can custom order each one for each opening. And then I'll get someone that I know, a contractor that does windows to give a price, but obviously I can't price it out. So I'll get those two things, just so we have a gut check, and there's entirely a possibility that these numbers are good and that it's out of our price range. I think we should
Can you-
confirm that.
Adam, when you create the inventory of the windows that you're going to use to price
Sure.
out, can you
Yep.
give that same inventory to Mike so that we only have to have one person doing the inventory? So
That
that
sounds
he
good.
actually, and
Mike,
prioritize.
when I do it, Mike, I'm just gonna price out the common size window on that. So I'll
Right.
get dimensions on the common size for pricing
Right.
purposes. So I'm not gonna price out all the specialty, not specialty, but the oddball pieces and stuff here.
right,
Does that work for you?
that works, yeah.
Okay, I will,
Also-
I'll try to get that done. I'll try to get the dimension and account on those sides and kind of check the dimensions. I'll probably get it done by Friday, so I can shoot it over to you.
Also, there are other companies that make interior storm windows as well. I just did a quick internet search and several came up. I didn't look at them there very closely. One of them had kind of a rubber gasket around the outside of them, I guess. But so there are other alternatives there. I think we probably have to bid that in the same way we would other things too. So the heating ventilating system, I kind of think that's something we ought to do.
Well, there was question before when we were talking about the renovation and we were talking about replacing windows. There was also a question of if we replace windows without addressing some of the heating and ventilation, that the air quality inside the building is going to be compromised. And so I'm wondering if we need to sort of think about these two things together.
That's a very good point. That, I think the air quality, I don't know a lot about the air quality. I know that current system, they said, doesn't bring any outside air in.
Yes,
You get
right.
what you got and
Yeah,
it just
it's already
goes around and
circulated.
around. And I know that the town clerk's office, I was in there a while ago and they have some sort of an air purifier in there. They said that helps some with air quality. So
Yeah.
it seems like air quality is already marginal.
Yes.
Even before we do anything
Yeah.
to reduce the ventilation.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much more we want to go into this tonight. One other though, was let me see if I can find it here. Okay, the post office roof. I tried to pull in everything that I thought. I may not have got all of this exactly right. I came up with a bare cost of the post office roof of totally around $241,000. Is that similar to what you got, Adam, when you were dealing with the vent, with the, not the vent, the,
For the grant proposal?
grant? So,
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but that sounds, within reason. I know part of the roof was, so that there was the demo of
Yeah.
the roof, but also the HVAC that's up there, because that would need to be all removed to do it.
Yeah,
So I
So
don't
maybe some-
remember, that sounds right, but I don't know if that included
yeah, it's in
the
that,
demo and all that.
anyway, it may not be perfect, but
It's in
you
that
know,
neighborhood,
that
yes.
escalated up to $333,000. That's tearing the whole roof off to make it stronger and then put it all back again, throwing the post office out for all of that time. I have a similar, you know, and basically the reason that we want to tear it all off is to get some more insulation in there. So we're back at the same argument I had for the windows. There isn't enough energy to be picked up there to warrant doing that. I mean, is there a way we can get some insulation in there without ripping the whole roof off?
Can I address that for just a moment? Because that was a posting from Jeff Ford out in Front Porch Forum that he talked about the load of this
Yeah.
between the snow
Yeah.
and the insulation. That was a narrative that was not accurate.
Right.
So the additional insulation did not necessarily trigger having to restructure the whole roof. It was for the solar panels.
Yes, absolutely. That was about what I was going to say,
Yes.
that it's pretty obvious that is why people have been pushing to get this done, is to strengthen the roof. No one's told me yet anywhere, I've asked a couple of times, you know, is there any structural problem with the roof that needs to be fixed? I don't know of any.
There has none been.
And so it doesn't make,
Confirm that.
again, any financial sense to tear that whole roof off in order to do it. If the solar panels can save us enough on energy to pay for it, then that's another thing. And if we got the grant that was gonna give it to us for nothing, I wasn't going to argue, but I have nothing against putting on solar panels, but I don't think this is warranted. So there's a lot.
Mike, if we can confirm, I guess we would probably need like I mean, obviously we all know that the roof hasn't collapsed, so it holds up to historic snow loads. But if we can confirm that with engineering that it was just for the solar panels, I mean, there are pretty good options to just add foam on top of the roof, which is like exponentially cheaper than tearing the roof off to do it. And that's really common. I've been part of projects, we've done that in commercial buildings where we demo the old roof membrane. You add 3 or 6 inches of foam. It's put down with screws. It's a really, really simple, cheap process. And then you put the new membrane on top. So that's a really common process. If we can confirm it, I don't know what level of confirmation would be needed. On a lot of projects, you just assume that they're good because they have been, and you add the foam. It's a negligible amount of weight. It's like well under a pound per square foot. So I don't know what kind of threshold it would be there, but it seems like that would be a very good option if we're kind of willing to give up the solar option, which I think dollars for benefit is reasonable, very reasonable.
And we may very well have to replace the membrane anyway to fix the leaks. I don't know what exactly is gonna be necessary there, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, the membrane was kind of at end of life, so that any leaks we fixed would be a short-term solution until we replace the roof. So I think that this is something we're gonna be running into fairly soon anyway. So I think it would be prudent about a plan to add the insulation without redoing the structure while we do that.
And the good news of doing it the way you're saying, Adam, is that the post office does not have to relocate during that time.
That's kind of the biggest benefit of it is there's no relocation costs or any chance of them ceasing to be a tenant. I think it can happen while they're there as long as there's standard amount of planning around weather, which is very common.
Another thing that I noticed in here as I went through under the site work, there was a plan to basically tear up all the paving in the parking lot and regrade it and redo the whole parking lot. And that added up when you escalated it up to $1,079,000 and change. The library fixing the entrance to that was around 199,000. Parking lot, I don't see a great need for. The library may need something, but I've heard there might be a chance of getting some money elsewhere, whether that's.
We applied, or we looked at applying for a grant that we were hoping we could use some of that money for. We didn't get it.
Didn't
So,
get
yeah,
it.
we're not gonna have.
But it, you know,
great luck
just
with that.
looking, I believe that the plan was to put a right ramp all the way across. the
Yeah, they were
parking
gonna
lot.
reconfigure the ramp and reconfigure the parking lot thinking when that went in initially into the plan was to improve safety between people, the pedestrians walking back and forth.
Yeah.
Between the buildings and to include and make the handicap parking not where you have to pull out onto back out onto Bridge
Yeah.
Street and put all the handicap parking inside the lot, and they were gonna just reconfigure
Yeah.
where the spaces were. But yeah, it was expensive.
Yeah, but looking at what's there now. There's kind of a ramp already there, parallel to that, there's a sidewalk that goes up
There is,
through.
yeah, there is.
But
a
it
ramp.
does, you have to go out in the street and climb
Yeah,
over.
and it's starting to crack.
And
It's
it's
starting
starting
to
to crack,
crumble
so
and
it-
it's not super.
It-
The good
But
news
it's-
is the highway department is doing sidewalks
Right.
now and doing the pave.
So-
the concrete and
so-
stuff like that, so
Yeah.
we should possibly ask the highway department to see if it's on their scheduled capital plan already to make sure,
Mhm.
right?
and it may need a little reconfiguring so that you can easily get on it with a handicap type of thing on that end, because now I think you gotta go out in the street and maybe you'd have to move the electric vehicle charger somewhere so you
Right.
could get access from the side or something to get some places there. So, but it might be less than $200,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is on the library's capital plan, but we don't really have a plan for when we would do anything about that now that we aren't getting grant money for it.
So that's the kind of thing that I've got in here. As I said, the re-layout of the interior came to well over $2 million. There were something like replacing 53 interior doors in there for $100,000 something in there. I could look what it was. I think we need to do some things. I don't think we need to do that much. So I know we talked about that we needed possibly to replace some of the interior doors in order to get some security features on them.
And-
But that's maybe coming up here.
Yep.
But,
It is,
but I don't think we have to change every closet door in the place.
I'm 100% agreement with you with that.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing, if people think this would be useful to look at, I can put it out. But I just wanted to explain what it was. My numbers don't quite add up to what they had in here at this point. I found a few mistakes I had in it today when I was going through it. I'll look through it some more, but so it's just, it doesn't claim to be 100%, but I think it gives us a pretty good feel for which buckets things go in.
Personally, I think it's useful. I think everything you've talked through would be useful to
Mhm.
see and to look at from a different perspective than what was presented originally. I think it would be very useful, but if you're uncomfortable providing.
No, I was uncomfortable providing it without coming in here tonight and explaining
Sure.
what it was. So I would be perfectly well, I may look at and see if I can find any more issues with it before I send it out, but
And when you put it out there, I see you have a draft stamped on it, say that it was you pulling numbers from the Black River, so that's identifiable. So if
That-
somebody has questions, they can go back to who created this document? And
Yeah.
what was the
yeah,
resources or the source that it came from?
when we left the last meeting, I kind of said that I was gonna put it out and I got home trying to figure out where to put that explanation in there, so.
I put right in the beginning, just a little
Thing up here,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, right.
Make
in
another
there,
line,
Right,
make
right in
another
that whole section
Yeah.
right there, just
Yeah.
pop a little paragraph about it. This is a draft, this is where you pulled
Yeah.
this information
Okay,
from. And
I
if
can
anybody
do,
has
I
any
can do that.
questions, they can ask you. That would be perfect.
All right, well, that's what I've got. We can,
Well, I want to make sure, Adam or Matt, do you have anything that you'd like to talk about on that agenda one? I mean, we knew that the first agenda item was going to take a while. The other stuff is going to can go through quickly. Is there anything that you guys would like to add on that first agenda piece? I mean,
No,
I wanna
I think
open
this
the
is a
floor.
great exercise. I think that Mike really nailed down a bunch of the concerns we have and kind of balancing the costs versus the benefits. I guess the one thing I keep coming back to is that none of these things are on the order of magnitude of like $10,000. They're all expensive enough. We'd like to come up with some funding source. And I just don't know what that is. Like having been through budget season this year, I don't foresee that getting better in the next few years. And so I just, any large funding, we would come up with a bond vote. We would have to fund with some type of bond vote. And I just don't know how tenable that is in the next few years. So that's kind of my big holdup. I know it's not related to this, but that seems to be overly over theme in my mind of how the heck are we going to pay for this? So, but I think it's worthwhile work. I think this work's going to need to be done no matter what. So,
I think I might just drop that down for a discussion for another agenda item, if that's
Sure.
okay. It's
that's
just
totally fine. I don't think we
discussion
need to discuss it. I just trying to.
Funding?
That seems to be that just seems to be the feeling I'm having the whole time. So, you know, that's kind of I think that everyone's trying to balance that, but yeah.
Well, I think if you've just got a moment right now, because it can fall underneath this agenda one item thing, is the funding discussion, and I think we've had it in many meetings before, was the fact that we were going to have to look at all of our options from bond to current funds to potential phasing. And look at it from all of those angles. I mean, we looked at grants and grants we haven't been successful on, but during this process, we're still going to continue to be open to grant. But I think that's where we were at, where it goes back to Mike's list, is what do we really want to do? And what we want to do and how much it's going to cost is going to determine, is this just bond? Is this, can we do some things 1 year? And other things are different, 2 years, can we spread it out so it's not a big bond? How can we do it? And I think that comes down to back to Mike's list.
And we, as we said before, I don't know how much money is in the kitty right now, but we do have a fund with significant amount of money in it, that if we just come up with a list of things that we really think should be done, and some of them could be done without going to a bond. And get them out of the way, and
Yes.
or even partially, if we did part of the windows, for instance, or something.
Or doors.
Or doors, or some of the
Exterior.
doors, but we want to kind of make sure that things that we're doing aren't going to be torn up if we end up doing something else.
Right.
So we want to make sure where we're thinking about going, and I think some of it's gonna take a while anyway, especially figuring out what to do for a floor plan here and what the police department really needs. I was watching the news tonight. I understand we don't have many police officers, but we do have a dog. They had the Richmond Police Department's therapy dog on Channel 3 News. But so I think we can start through that process, but kind of the other part, if we hire Art and Camels Hump or someone like them to start working with us, and we drag this out for several years, what's that gonna do with
That's not my desire at all.
Yeah.
I think I wanted my own personal thought process with having an OPM was facts.
Yeah.
If we decide we want to do something, give us the facts, help us present it, help us confirm funding and pricing, and let's go that route. That was for me. I wasn't gonna go off of Black River's documents to try to get the next bond voted on, period.
But we may want to like hire him for the first phase, I think was $10,000 or something in that range. Do that, and then we'll decide, do we want to do the next one now or wait a year, or whatever. I don't know.
Matt and Adam, are you okay if we move to the agenda item number 2 so that we can talk about the owner's project manager? Was there anything else for one?
Sounds good.
Nope, that sounds right.
Adam, do you have any update? I'll tell you what we know, but do you have anything on the owner's project manager that's very recent?
No, I guess we're either about to be or we're out for RFP, but no, there's nothing,
No, we're
There's
not out
nothing.
for RFP.
No.
okay.
We're not out. We're not
working
out.
on it. So,
Working
yeah, so
on that.
no recent update.
So the update that we have from Duncan, I just wanted to make sure you didn't have something different from Josh, that's why I was asking. The update that we have from Duncan is the RFP hasn't been drafted yet. We had said at the select board meeting to have Josh and you use the Camels Hump Development Group's scope of work as the RFP skeleton or framework. And so Duncan's at a standstill right now.
Do they need more input from us?
No,
I don't think so. I think it's just a workflow right
Just-
now.
just
The
a matter-
FEMA deadlines were all right
Yeah.
around the first of the year and they had to get the FEMA filings done.
Yeah.
And Duncan's been super busy with that.
I just want to make sure that Adam, you don't have to do anything else. All right, is that correct? I want to make sure, because if Duncan needs anything else, I want to make sure we're not holding him up either.
I had told Duncan that I think he understands what we need to do. If he gets into it and it's not clear, he knows that he can reach out to me. and we can get it clear.
Beautiful.
But
So
yeah,
that's
I did get the sense he was pretty slammed, so that does make sense.
Yep. So that has not gone out to RFP yet. It will go out probably in the next, say, month. It'll go out in the next month. Because the budget will be locked in and that'll be, focus will be moved off from that. So that's the issue with the owners, project managers, RFP. The RFP update on the exterior and interior doors and security. Do you have anything different than what I might have in an email? Amy, I want to make sure.
No, the only thing I know, what I know is not so much the RFP, but that there was somebody here today to do some minor fixes on the exterior doors, just to make sure that they closed properly and that they, stopped sort of being open and leaking all kinds of heat out the doors. So the doors are closing properly and they're working better than they were 24 hours ago. But his recommendation, the tech's recommendation was these doors are at the end of their useful life. So we do need to move forward on at least the 2 exterior glass doors, replacing those.
One thing to think about when we're doing that, however, is that whole section there, I believe, is part of the post office building, and I believe it's all above the pipe trenches underneath. So if we were to have to go to
Fill in the pipe
doing
trench.
the whole thing over again, some of that's gonna be disturbed.
I don't, my instinct is we're not gonna have to, but, well, the
I
doors-
hope
the
not.
doors can be good, they can be uninstalled
Yeah,
and
yeah,
reinstalled.
reinstalled again.
Bottom
Yeah,
line is,
yeah,
we're gonna
yeah.
buy doors that
Yeah,
we're not gonna
yeah,
throw away.
yeah.
Yeah.
My feeling with the doors though is the RFPs were coming in, they have different prices, they have different things. I push back, I wanna know what we need done for exterior security and new doors. And have interior broken out separately, because I felt personally the priority was exterior and I wanna know the difference between the two. Because they were talking about, smart entry or those kinds of things of what level, are you gonna use your phone to get in, or are we gonna have cards? And how the exterior, and then doing a lot of that work on the interior versus good old fashioned keys once you're inside the building. So I felt like they didn't have enough detail yet and they were going to get more and they were still looking at that. Do you know anything different than that, Adam?
No, I don't have any, I haven't been really tracking this one
Okay.
very closely at all, so no, I have no update on it.
And the only reason I was asking is, as you as a select board member might have heard something in a select board meeting from Josh, because I know Josh is the one.
I know
who's
they
been
had
working-
talked about what they were going to work on, but I haven't heard any specifics of what the proposal
Okay.
looks like or anything like that, no.
Perfect, so we're just, the update on that right now is they're working on it. And they had, as Amy said, they had people who are actually working physically on the exterior doors. I do think, like Mike says, I think we're gonna find that that's something that we have money in the reserve fund, that if the price comes in and we all agree, minimally, we need to do the exterior.
Yeah.
If we're not sure what we're gonna do interior wise yet, if we're gonna move any offices, then I think we leave the interiors alone. That's my gut instinct.
The exterior doors shouldn't change no matter what we do.
Correct.
Right.
I don't think so.
It's just potentially the electrical system, if they make sure that they designed it and brought it in for those doors that can expand to include interiors if we so choose to do so in the future. Everybody good with that thought
Yep.
process?
Yep.
Okay. Radiate
Chairlift.
chairlift request. I know Adam and Matt, you weren't at the last meeting where Radiate came and they talked about doing a chairlift. They said they might have information for us this meeting or might not, so we
Yeah.
put them on as an agenda item. And we'll just, there's no update on that, they're not here. And if they come back to us, if they notify you, Adam, we'll add it as an agenda item in the future when they come back with the information. Our concern was they could, if they wanted to put a chairlift in on that stairwell that went down to the basement, that it might not be OSHA, might narrow that stairwell to the point where it's not an egress and that would become a problem. So they were looking into all of that.
So was their request just permission to do it, or was it for us to coordinate it or pay for it? What, do you have any sense of what they were looking for?
Permission to do it, and then they would fundraise for it.
Oh, that sounds, okay. Yeah, if they get in
So
touch
we
for
were
any reason,
open.
I'll put it on the agenda and let them know that we're ready to go anytime, talk about it.
If,
No, they knew that. They did know that, Adam. So my point
Oh,
is that they
perfect.
reached
Okay.
out.
If they
when
reach
they've
out,
got
I
it.
haven't heard from them, so if they reach out, we'll put them on the agenda.
Perfect, yeah. I think they sounded like it was gonna take them a little time to do their, it was the holidays too and all of that kind of stuff, so I'm not surprised that it's not ready yet.
Sounds good.
one thing to think about a little bit like that, though, if, they put in a chair lift in there so disabled people can get down into that space. The fire escape from there is climbing up a step ladder and going out the window, so that might be an issue.
I totally think it's a lot of issues we gotta look at. When and if that comes back to us,
Yeah,
we'll be open to it, right?
they asked a while ago for some sort of steps to be built there to get to that. It isn't actually, it used to be a window. There is a door that opens there that from the inside and so forth to the fire escape, but it is at the level of the downstairs windows, so that's,
I do agree with you on the fire escape stuff we have to look at. That's a safety issue. My priority in this building was safety issues, so I agree. So we'll come back to that. I actually put the website discussion, of the committees page, our page where we land on for us. I put that on for something to discuss because when you land on it, it's all the whole listing of all the now Black River stuff that I don't think, do you mind sharing, Amy?
Yep.
I would love that.
Let me go.
Which I don't really think that should be the focus of our landing page when somebody looks at our committee stuff. I think they should have access to it if they want, but it shouldn't be,
yeah,
read all this stuff that means nothing to
Right.
the average person.
it doesn't mean much to us, but,
Right, I want it available,
But
but I don't
it-
think it's where you land.
right, exactly. We had to put it there in order to make it available and so that we could, I've talked about some of it here in this meeting tonight. But, yeah, so it needs to be available, but doesn't necessarily have to be the first thing you see when you go to the.
Yeah, so when you open it up to all of these documents. All these project documents that we aren't really using where we're at right now.
It's slow. There we go. Okay, it's catching up. Right, those are all now outdated. Right?
Correct.
So
I'm almost asking if we could possibly, if everybody's okay, if we move them to like archive,
Archive.
that archive button down there. And maybe where that project is, I'd almost like us to have a little blurb about what we're working on, or a little update section, such as if we go out to RFP and get a owner's project manager, a little blurb
Right.
about who we hire and what they do for us
yeah,
and where we're at.
Right, well, your thing has been the safety, my thing has been public, information since we began.
Transparency, right?
I think that, doing that, getting as much out there about what we're doing and why we're doing it is a good thing.
So if everybody's okay with it, once we get some of the RFP work done with the owners, project, the OPM and the doors. If you guys are okay with it, I'll work with Duncan. We'll move this information to archives and I'll prepare a little blurb that is, everybody can
Yep.
look at a meeting and say, yes, we like this. Or I'll work with Amy if it's okay,
Yep,
because you
sure.
like it, you're very good at, and we'll put a little blurb out there, and then we'll have information on the owner, the OPM that we do.
Yep.
And maybe we have a little bulletin, a little update area of things that are getting done, because Duncan sent me, and I don't have it on the agenda, so I'm not gonna go through it now. Of the deferred maintenance items that are
Yeah,
getting done, so
yeah.
people know we're actually
Yeah.
getting, you know, we're doing things. The post office docking area is getting repaired, the spouts that were busted and leaking and rotting boards are getting repaired. If we decide to do something with the windows, on a pilot project on the windows, we're doing that.
Maybe we ought to have an ongoing, agenda item at the end saying anything we ought to put out to the,
Right, I
There,
like that
something like
idea,
that.
if you guys, so a website update, you know,
yeah,
something like that. So I'll follow up with Duncan to see what we can and can't do, because I can't assume it's as easy as what we think.
right.
Mhm.
And I don't want to add something to his plate that's really difficult, so we want to have it all ready and just something that he.
All you have to do is post, right?
Yeah.
We'll write it, you
Just gonna
post it.
post
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
But we can at least archive those documents that we are not using for
Right,
where we're going forward.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda was, I think we're now to 7, which was Adam's item, but I'll wait for you to, I'm not rushing. We're doing great for
There we go.
time. So we're now at the approval of meeting minutes. The meeting minutes, I apologize, I need to find I didn't use my electronic notebook for that August 28th meeting.
Oh, okay.
So I've got to find my handwritten notes, I
That's
didn't
fine.
have a chance to it, but I did do the notes from our last meeting.
Yep, I looked at them actually the other day just to check on something.
If there
So
was any
they're
typos
fine.
on that, okay, so I'll
Okay.
entertain a motion to approve those.
motion to
Yeah.
approve the minutes from
Seconded by
December
Mike.
11th.
December
Was it
12/11,
12?
12/11,
Okay.
yes, 12/11 meeting minutes. Any discussion?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you two were absent, so I'll say you abstain.
Abstain would be good, yeah.
Okay. Ditto.
I mean, if you
Okay.
want to vote, I can vote on something I have no input on, but
No, I just wanted to make sure I got it on record that we had 2 abstain. Perfect, so we're caught up with our meeting minutes, other than the one missing meeting, which I will get to at some point, I apologize. So our next agenda item was back to what, Adam, you wanted to discuss about the frequency or, of the meetings that we're having, and maybe change it or recommend something different?
I mean, it seems like we have a lot of legwork to do, but the meeting, I think we're still technically a twice monthly meeting, and we've
Yes.
just been not doing that. So I don't know. I would say at minimum, we should formalize that we are once monthly. I think twice monthly seems, in my mind, seems excessive, but I don't know what everyone else's thoughts are there. I mean, we have a lot of work to do, a lot of legwork behind the scenes, but it seems like the meetings themselves don't need to be that frequent.
I can agree with you during right now until we get the OPM in place, until we have RFPs back. That it's not a lot of decision making for us, that once a month we can talk about this major list that Mike wants to address, and we can take and do a couple of items at a time that are related to each other potentially, to have some discussion. But for me, some of those major things,
Yeah,
are gonna take the OPM's guidance for me to
Yeah,
feel
I think that's
comfortable.
very reasonable. If things change and multiple times a month makes sense, I would be totally open to reevaluating the schedule. I think we should reevaluate our meeting schedule depending on the workload and the amount of time we need between meetings to get work done. It just seems like meeting, I think it's going to take Mike and I, even if we get the window stuff, the measurements done quickly, we're not going to be ready to meet in 2 weeks to discuss that at minimum. So, but if that changes with the OPM, if we get an OPM in place, then we can definitely reevaluate and change the schedule again.
maybe rather than actually changing our schedule from twice a month, we could just at this meeting say, we're gonna skip the next meeting. And
I think what we should
we
do, is possibly, and I'm just gonna put it out there, because the public could look at the calendar
Mhm.
and think, oh, I'll just go to their next meeting, right? I think
Yeah.
we're better off saying we're gonna have once a month meetings, and we add in a meeting when we know like, oh, the RFP's back on the
Okay,
other
that-
project managers.
That works too. Yeah.
I would say from a
Either way.
scheduling standpoint, I think sorry, I didn't
Mm.
communicate that well. I think that's important too, is that they're posted and then there's no agenda and there's no meeting there, but they're
Yeah.
posted and that's it's one, not a great look, and two,
Right.
it's just not accurately relaying kind of what we're doing. So,
I don't know if we can change it this meeting.
do we need
if
an action
so-
item to do that? Does it
I
need to be
don't know if
warned?
we have to, listen, the public's not here, as far as the frequency of our meetings, we didn't get any pushback. Because we went from December 11th to January 8th. I'm comfortable, if you're all comfortable with us, and I don't know if we have to take a motion to do it, to change it. I'm comfortable with making it be once a month and as needed added in meetings.
So that's kind of what we've been doing. So should we just talk to Duncan and have him not put meetings on until instead of having a placeholder there, we don't put the placeholder in twice a month, we put it in once a month, and then we can add them as needed.
Yes.
So
I
it
think
doesn't
that's
give the
okay.
impression that we're doing a twice a month meeting when we
And I
kind
don't
of
think we have to
historically
make a
haven't been.
motion to do it.
I
Okay.
think on the website, doesn't it say that we are having meetings of was a second?
Because we chose. Yeah.
So it is on the
We just need to
website there.
tweak that on, we need to change that on the
Change that,
website too.
yeah.
So
The
let's,
second month,
can
or
we-
second Wednesday, or
can
the
we
fourth
look at a
Wednesday.
calendar, and I know it would be part of our agenda item, our creating an agenda for the next meeting kind of thing, but can we all look at a calendar right now and say, we don't meet again in January, but then that kicks us to,
So our next scheduled, well,
Be the
we are
12th, right?
scheduled for January 22nd. On the website, it says January 22nd, February 12th, February 26th. So
okay,
if we are meeting once a month on the second Wednesday, our next meeting would be February 12th. But actually, we're the second and fourth Wednesday, but it gets off on those 5-week months because we're actually after the select board or before the select board. Our meetings depend on when the select board meets also.
so I'm good if we just give Duncan the notice that we're gonna not have the January 22nd. We're gonna go once a month, and we'll let him put it on the calendar based on when it's supposed to fall, based
Yeah.
on select board meetings.
So I
Sounds
think what
good.
that would be is, today's the 8th, so then we'd have February 12th and March 12th would be our next two meetings.
That sounds reasonable.
I like that too. I appreciate you bringing that up. And if we need one before, in between anywhere,
Yeah,
we'll.
we can always
put it
add
in
one
on
in. We
those
did
four.
that for the
Yeah,
grant.
we'll notify
accordingly, so.
everybody, and it could be just a special meeting just for the OPM.
Mhm.
Right,
Or
right.
the RFP on the doors.
It doesn't necessarily need to be on the date that we would have had a meeting
Yeah,
either.
if we
It's
need to have
whenever we can all-
Emergency meeting,
Whenever
to
we
make a
can get
decision for
together.
the select board prior to a select board meeting, we can
But-
definitely do that.
But we
We
have to
just have to
tell,
warn it,
yeah, we have to tell
Yeah.
Duncan a few
Yeah.
days ahead.
Totally.
Perfect.
and we
So,
may have to
um,
compete with all the other
Do you
boards that
mind-
are meeting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is,
Yeah.
do you mind communicating this
Yep.
change to Duncan for us if you don't mind? And then as we go, we'll plan it a week ahead, potentially, if the select board says one Monday night, we need to know from the town center committee something.
Yeah.
We'll know that Monday night, so we can plan possibly the next week if we need to have one. Perfect. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you bringing that up. So since our next meeting isn't gonna be till February 12th. We hopefully are gonna have a OPM update, and we might be reviewing RFP information and selecting one or recommending one. Because we're going to recommend to the select board. Correct, Adam?
yeah, I think, yes, we're not picking anything. We would be making a recommendation, my understanding.
Okay. The other thing is going to be possibly the RFP on the doors. I would think the select board's gonna come back to us and ask us what we wanna do or what we recommend doing. Interior, exteriors, here's the RFPs, here are the prices. What do you think? Is that an incorrect assumption?
I don't
or-
think we've talked about that. I mean, I can see that going either way, having it be like a security thing and stuff. I can see it not needing to come through the committee. I guess personally, I can see it working either way, and I don't think as a select board, we haven't talked about it. So,
Yeah,
what is would everyone like to discuss that as a committee, or was that something you would like to defer on?
I don't want
And
to spend.
I can just relay whatever if they say, what would the committee like? I can relay what our preference is in the meeting.
Go ahead, Mike.
the only thing that I can see why we would want to be involved is to make sure we aren't doing anything that's going to interfere with the bigger changes that we might eventually get to. But other than that, it seems like replacing the doors and so forth is kind of a.
Okay, so I'll just word it as though if it's really like just a security upgrade and not a massive rehab of reframes of doors and everything,
No.
then we
No.
would like to review it, but we're not gonna make a recommendation on what system or whatever. We just want to review it for compatibility with our projects going forward. Does that make sense?
No, not necessarily, because I'm 100% behind doing something with exterior doors. I'm wanting to know the cost to do anything with interior doors. I question spending on interior doors at this point in time, including security on interior doors. I'd really have to know why the security has to change from what we have. I'm hesitant on that because if we're talking $50,000 for the complete project versus $10,000 for the complete project, that's a big difference to me.
And
I'll indicate if it comes up in the select board, I'll indicate that the committee would like to review the proposal and make a recommendation.
Thank you.
If I remember correctly from, I think the last meeting when Duncan was here, that they wanted to put some on the interior doors, but the security company said they couldn't put them on the old doors that we had, that they needed to replace the doors in order to do that. So there may be more than just putting a card reader on the doors.
Correct. So that's all. It's because, especially if there's, like Mike has talked about before, office shuffling around, changes being done interior. I would hate to put the labor into it. The materials don't go away, but the labor does.
Yes.
But that's something where, even though we may not have money to do everything we'd like to do right now, it still may be useful for us to look at what we want to do. If we knew where the walls are going to go or where we would like them to go and so forth, and what doors are going to get changed and which ones aren't, then it makes it easier to make those decisions as to what we might be able to do.
Yeah, we can also probably prioritize which doors are in need of security and which, the conference room doors don't need a key card, but yes, maybe the door leading to the vault needs some kind of security.
So I'll just recommend if the proposal that comes back is doesn't involve changing any interior doors at all, then the committee, wants to do a review of it. If it involves changing interior doors, we want to thoroughly review it and make a formal recommendation. Does that make sense? I mean, exterior, we all agree that can happen, but if it's a pretty comprehensive proposal that we need to do stuff, then obviously we can review it. I mean, I haven't heard anything about it. I have no idea what the scale of this proposal is going to come back at. I don't know.
I don't want to get in trouble for burning money, Adam, so that's why I have to be cautious.
Yeah, I mean, exterior, like you said, the exterior seems pretty permanent. We're not going to change door locations in the exterior. That's a good investment. Interior could be a less good investment.
Totally agree.
What about the post office doors? If we're talking exterior doors, maybe that's a conversation for a different time.
I don't know.
We need to look at the exterior post office.
I don't know if in the RFP for the exterior doors, it included the post office doors. So that's something Amy just said. I don't know if you heard that, Adam.
Yeah, I don't know. I to be completely honest, I haven't even reviewed that RFP, so I don't.
And I don't know if they're in better shape than the town center's exterior door, but
I think it's a similar door.
Yeah.
I think it's very simple. Yeah. Okay. The other thing is we'll drop back the website discussion, have a little draft of something for everybody to see. If everybody's okay if you're comfortable with Amy and I just putting something up there in place of all of that stuff, we're just gonna do that. If that's okay with everybody, we don't have to come back.
Sounds good.
But we'll talk about, we'll add to the agenda at the bottom of the agenda, like any updates that we should include on the website. of what we've got going on. So right now, there's only 3 agenda items for the next meeting, unless we're gonna start to tackle some of the list that Mike has. And we still have time now in this agenda to look at Mike's list and say what things we would want to talk about. Do we think we would have some kind of window update by 30,
February 12th.
30 days from now?
I mean, I can call the interior people there and see if I can make sure that price list I've got is up to date and see what they offer as far as measuring and installation. I think that was basically the questions we had.
If they do a free estimate, if, I don't know how far there, if they can come and actually measure a couple windows and.
Yeah, I mean, I came down and measured the windows and close enough for an estimate. I think they're 101 inches high and 43 and a quarter wide or something like that.
So them actually looking and going, would it
Can we
work?
do the,
Yeah.
these,
Yeah.
yeah,
Would it
but-
work here? And I want you to look at the ones
Right.
where the staff are,
Right, and yes, and
in case they have those drop.
And the drop
ceilings.
the
ceiling.
drop
ones that we
ceiling
talked
ones
about.
will be an issue. I think we'll have to disassembly some part of that. to
Are
get
they in
to
there
them.
where the staff specifically is? Are there drop ceiling ones there?
I believe some places there,
Have to-
I walked around and looked a bit. I think some of the ones for the staff is maybe that way. I know the other conference room here where we often sit
Okay.
has those. There's some
Can't
on the
remember.
other side of the building where there's a drop ceiling, but they aren't blocked out to the window. So you could possibly slide one up behind it. So there's different, and for them to actually measure the windows to build them, then it's a more complicated process to do, but to get a price, I think, just the rough size of them, they want to know the distance around the window or the height plus the width or something like that, and then if it's a double hung, it's a little higher because they have to put the mullion in the middle and
Yeah.
make 2 pieces and so forth. But I think
Is 30 days good for you? I know Mike says he's gonna do some more research in the next 30. Do you have time in your next 30?
I think that should be plenty of time to get the actual window roughly priced out as far as getting like a labor estimate. I think that seems reasonable, but that's really kind of at the mercy of whoever I can get to price that out. So I will shoot for 30 days. And hopefully we'll have something, but I'll give you guys an
Okay.
update ahead of the meeting so we can schedule accordingly.
And I'll do the follow-up on the replaced windows and the historical and anything special that happened with that. And just email that to you, Adam, so that you're aware for your pricing.
Awesome, thank you. I'll review it and see if there's something I'm missing that,
Well,
just so
it
we
was
know.
pre-Josh. It was pre-Josh, so he's not gonna know that history either, so I've gotta delve a little bit deeper than that, so I'll find out how far back they were replaced, and I'll look at probably select board meeting minutes on when it happened.
Okay, so was it like, I guess that was like, what was that, like 2010, 2009, 2010 era? was that
Honestly,
done?
it's been so long, I don't
You know
know.
who might know is Mary.
Oh, no, they're gonna know in
Yeah.
the town
Oh,
office.
when they paid,
Linda-
yeah.
Linda.
Oh,
knows.
Linda will know, yeah.
Yeah, from when it was paid,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna have to then take that time period and see what they talked about and
Linda may know that too.
I'll even call Gary. I know he helped them pick the windows, get the windows, all of that kind of stuff, so I'll use that resource to provide that. Okay, so windows, was there anything else on the list that we want to start talking about in February, or can we wait to see where we're at with the OPM?
I think we can wait to see where we're at. That would make sense.
if we come up with things that need to be on the agenda in the
We can.
meantime, I think it's perfectly legal to communicate that
Yeah.
with emails to say that if there's anything that comes up.
If you just send it to Adam, if you just send what you'd like added to the agenda to Adam and I, you shouldn't send it to all 5 people. That's where it becomes an issue. Because if we're the ones who are just posting the agenda and you've got something you want to add, we have no problem adding it. We just don't have a discussion about it. If we titled it wrong, you can just tell us it's the wrong title. That's simple like that. But we can't
Okay.
talk about the agenda items.
Like, well, yeah, they could, that's fine. I think it's more nuanced than that, but That's, I think as long as it's just the agenda part of it and not actually making decisions on the substance of it, you may be okay.
It just makes life easier, just say, add this to the agenda and we're
Yeah.
good with adding whatever you wanna add.
Yeah.
Boom, but it's not all five. That they don't do that at select board level.
Yeah.
They just have the chair go in and tell Josh what to put on the agenda. They decide at a meeting beforehand and they add stuff if something needs to be added.
And I think our deadline is just the Monday before our meeting.
Yeah, I sent it
Yeah,
to him.
2 days, 2 days
2 days.
before.
On that Sunday, so that Duncan wasn't pressured
Yeah.
late, getting it late on
As
Monday.
long as it, I think, is to Duncan on Monday, we're good.
Anything else, you guys? We're able to get out of here early if we're all done.
No, I don't have anything else.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Via Zoom and we will end I don't know if we need a motion to adjourn the meeting,
I
but.
move we adjourn.
Thank you. Appreciate
Second.
that. Yep, all in
All right.
favor?
Aye.
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 Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.